Just to introduce myself, I think a lot of you have been here before, but I'm Amber Unruh, Senior Project Manager of Special Projects for the Department of Public Works in the town of Barnstable. And I'm managing the Sandy Neck long-term coastal resiliency project. But I'm not doing this alone, by no means. There's a lot of stakeholders and project partners on this project. And not least to mention Nina Coleman, Sandy Neck Beach Park Manager, and her great staff. And we have alongside her Director of Marine and Environmental Affairs, Derek Lawson. We've also got members of the Sandy Neck Board here tonight, Chairman Tom, and I see Bill and Maureen back there. Sorry, I don't know your last names. Also, we have two counselors, Counselor Starr and Counselor Tamish joining us tonight. Welcome, thank you for coming. And we also have our great consultants, they're sitting in the back, Leslie and Justine from the Woods Hole Group, who have really helped us, bring this along from like a coastal resiliency technical standpoint. They've brought a lot of great ideas to the table. And our engineers from Ty & Bond, and also we have some folks from Goddard Consulting. They do a lot of the work on the endangered species for this area. And not least to mention that this project is partially funded by the Massachusetts Coastal Zone Management Office through their Coastal Resiliency Grant. And so we have a lot of partners on this call, not just you all stakeholders here tonight. And before I go any further, I have to remember that this meeting is being recorded and it may be broadcast on the Barnstable Government Access Channel at a later date after tonight's meeting, just so you're all aware. So without further ado, I'll get us started here. So the purpose of tonight's meeting, since our last meeting last June, which is where we presented some 65% design plans, we call them preliminary designs. We went and met with some permitting agencies since then and received a lot of comments from them. Also the comments you all gave us back last June. And so we've updated the plans since then. And so we're going to present the latest and greatest of these plans to you. We call them the 90% design level. And then we want to hear your feedback. So just a quick overview of what we'll discuss. We'll go over the project goals just to kind of remind ourselves of the intent of this project. We'll do a quick overview of our past public engagement, meetings, the permitting that we've done to date. There's still a lot left to do. The design considerations for this 90% design level. We'll get into the plans, some of which you all have a sneak peek already. And then we'll go into next steps and open it up for discussion. So real quick before I go on, I know a lot of you are familiar with the pictures on the right side of this screen. We of course have our March 2018 flooding of the Sandy Neck Gatehouse. It was flooded twice that March due to back-to-back coastal storms that brought a lot of water into the area, both times causing damage in the lower level of the gatehouse, requiring repairs. Just this past January, we had a pretty close call at the gatehouse. It was, about 2 months ago. It was just a high tide event with really strong southeasterly winds, so coming across Barnstable Harbor that day. And it pushed the water into this area because it's a very low-lying area. If you're familiar, when you drive in, you look to the right, you just see the marsh over there. So luckily, the gatehouse came out unscathed, but you can see it's very close to the bottom level there and potentially causing some damages. And of course, we have the dune erosion that occurs on the ocean side of the parking lot. Back in 2015, we had some major storms that really damaged the dune. It's been renourished since then, and then again in March of 2021 and March of 2022 we went out and did some more renourishment on that dune, just to keep it as wide as it is essentially today, to give it protection to the parking lot that's behind it. So the project goals, the town's primary goals for this project are to develop a long-term coastal resiliency project that addresses coastal vulnerability to erosion, dune loss, and flooding. is sustainable for at least 50 years, supports the current uses of the site that are safe for the public, enhances and protects coastal resources, is economically viable, and is permittable under the current environmental regulations. So we've, like I said, had a lot of public meetings on this project. This is our 4th one so far. So what we started with was a review of the site's vulnerabilities and constraints. And then we established those project goals I just mentioned to you. And at that meeting, what would have been a year ago this past January, we presented 3 conceptual designs with different alternatives that address the vulnerabilities on the site. One of them was a stone revetment, one was a partial reconfiguration of the parking lot where we pulled the parking lot back a little bit, but not really enough to make it sustainable, a sustainable project for 50 years. And then the final was to pull a full relocation where we pulled the parking lot back to make it sustainable for at least 50 years against future erosion events and flooding. So moving from that meeting, we got a lot of comments. Comments that, I remember off the top of my head from that meeting were largely about traffic flow on the site, where the gatehouse was located, and screening of the parking lot and the way car lights would be facing. Also in that original plan, we had proposed to move the ORV trail from its current location up to the back side of the parking lot. That was something that we got a lot of comments as if that was really a good idea for the project. So in our next meeting, we took a stab at basically analyzing, improving traffic flow within the parking lot, creating screening of car lights from the parking lot, and then also comparing if you move the ORV trail versus if you didn't move the ORV trail. What kind of impacts did that have on the site, and how we use it and interact with it, and whether or not it was the best from a management standpoint. And what came out of that meeting was it was optimal not to move the ORV trail and to leave it in its current place today. Again, leaving that meeting, we still had comments like, the traffic flow just wasn't right where we wanted it. So there was still work that needed to be done on that. We also wanted to improve the air up and air down operations associated with the project. So we took a deeper dive and look into those operations, which is when we got to our June 22nd preliminary design presentation, where we had brought a lot of that together and improved it even further. And so today we're going to get into the 90% designs. And so some things that, kind of affected these 90% designs were not only the comments we heard during the 65% design review, a lot of which had to do with lighting concerns around the site, particularly in the ORV, current ORV air up area, but also in the area of the existing gatehouse. We had proposed some improvements there to add in auxiliary air up spaces and switch it over to like some additional parking spaces for staff and whatnot. So we heard those comments from the public during the 65% design review. But then that last summer, we went ahead and we filed the project through the Massachusetts Endangered Species Act. We had to file a checklist to Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program to have them review our proposed project, and because there are endangered species throughout this area that need to be considered as part of the project. And in their review, they said, your project is going to result in a take of this rare species. And so as a result, we need to take measures to avoid and mitigate our impacts to those species. Now, they also told us that they believe the project to be permittable, which is a good thing to hear from that meeting. So that was one determination we got through permitting, and also kind of a, hey, really consider how you're going to avoid and mitigate your impacts to the species on this site. And the other thing we did was submitted the project to the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act through the Environmental Notification Form. So that's MEPA. And MEPA is basically a clearinghouse of all the regulatory agencies You have DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, Wetlands and Waterways, Natural Heritage, CZM, Coastal Zone Management Office. They all come together and review your project, and then they give you comments on it. And so we had a lot of comments on that, and we actually ended up with, I think, 4 meetings with the regulatory agencies as part of that process to try and address their comments during that process. But the good news is we were able to get the certificate from the secretary, which is something you want to get, that basically said, this project doesn't require an environmental impact report. That was a good thing. So we're moving forward into the 90% design plans, considering the comments that they gave us during that meeting. And I'll get into their comments a little bit more in the next slide. So we still have additional permits that we have to go seek for this project. Following this meeting, now that we're at the 90% design level, we're going to the Barnstable Conservation Commission to request an order of conditions for the project. We have to work with the Massachusetts Division of Fisheries and Wildlife, Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program. Because they gave us that MESA determination, we have to develop a conservation management plan for the work that we propose on the site and how we're going to mitigate and avoid those impacts to the rare species. And then we also have to work with the Old Kings Highway Historical District, who has, regulatory overview in this area. So from them, we have to get a certificate of appropriateness for what's proposed on this site. So the design considerations for the project at this phase were focused on enhancing pedestrian safety throughout the site, improving vehicular traffic flow throughout the site, and particularly the lot, trying to optimize parking spaces to the extent that we could, reducing the amount of impervious area from the last plan that we had proposed, and decreasing impacts to areas that haven't been disturbed by infrastructure on the site at this time. And so the numbers on this aerial photograph just show you kind of the areas that we're focused on as part of this work. We have the parking lot up top, the existing ORV trail. This is the area of the proposed new gatehouse, and then this is our existing gatehouse area where there'll still be parking in the maintenance garage. So this is the latest and greatest of the design plans for the upper parking lot. You might think that it looks largely very similar to what we presented last time, but there are a couple details that have changed. Starting in the lower lot real quick, the orientation of the spaces in the lower lot hasn't changed, but we have proposed in the 2 spaces that run along that green line, the vegetated bioretention swale, which is for stormwater, and addresses our Lake Sandy Neck that we have today. It has pervious pavement that will be in those parking spaces. And that's actually something that we added as a result of the MEPA review, permitting review. Overall, our project was increasing impervious area on the site, and they said, we really want to see you make an effort to mitigate that impervious area with more pervious area. So by adding this pervious pavement, it absorbs the stormwater like pervious ground would. So that was something that came out of that process. Just sticking with the stormwater real quick, we have that bioretention area behind the lower lot. It's meant to take the additional stormwater flow that swale can't handle. It'll pipe it over to that area so that area can take the additional stormwater flow. It was larger in the last design, but we were able to reduce its size, largely because we are incorporating pervious pavement within the parking lot. We still have a screening dune along the backside to screen the lights coming from any cars in that lower lot. And then as people move up to the upper lot, this lot, in the previous design, it had extended out a little further and was impacting, this area that we've never developed in. And so what we were able to do is bring the parking lot in just a little bit to hold it more to the existing edge of our current parking lot. and then add a row of spaces to that north side. And so, which is also within the area of our existing parking lot. Initially, we weren't proposing that because right along this parking lot edge is what we were calling our 50-year limit of loss. So, and that's what makes the project sustainable for 50 years, is not to lose significant portions of the parking lot to the ocean before then. And so we proposed that because it gave us essentially a traffic pattern that is very similar to our current lot, right? You drive in and you can go in a circle, or you can go down to the lower lot, come back up and out of the park. It's very similar to what we have today. And we talked with all of the project team members and some of the regulators and said, hey, this is what we're thinking. Do you think that this is not a good idea from the project standpoint? And they actually all preferred it because it had less impact on the site and was reducing impervious area created from this project. So it was viewed as a benefit. But we're also proposing some pervious pavement in that location. The existing area, pergola, sand play area around the bathhouse, that's actually growing in size a little bit as a result of this project because we were able to move some of these spaces away from that area and create a slightly larger sand play area and patio around that concession stand area. In a previous meeting, we had heard comments about how would pedestrians get from the lower lot to the upper lot. We were able to add a sidewalk to a boardwalk that will go around the backside of the bathhouse and bring you between the two lots in a safe manner. So these were a lot of the changes that occurred, as a result of the permitting process. We haven't added any additional lights in this area. It would be the same lights that are there today. So really, if you think about just picking up your existing parking lot and moving it about 60 feet landward, that's what this is proposing. So we tried to keep it as similar to what we have today. So then just moving down towards the existing ORV, air up, air down area. This area, it's largely the same thing. It serves for the same function to allow the ORVs to air down on their way into the park and air up on their way out of the park. But if you look, there's this pink line around the area. That's our existing disturbed area in the site. And when we were taking a look at it, we thought it wasn't used all that efficiently. So what we proposed was to expand certain areas, on these edges, for instance, and restore other areas, like in here and along here, to reconfigure the area so that it's more efficiently used. So what this is going to create is it's going to create more spaces for people to air down on their way into the park. And then on the way out, right now we're only proposing 5 car air spaces right there. I think we have 8 today, so it's a few less. But, theoretically, and staff and I talked, you could probably get a couple more cars back there as long as you set up the air stations. But really what this area provides that you don't have today is that fence in the middle with the compressor and the light post. It prevents you from being able to use the other side for air up area. So what we proposed was move the compressor out of the middle, get rid of the fence, and move the lights, there's multiple lights on one pole, so that this area is open. So as people are heading out of the park, they can air up on that side, or they can come over here and staff can set up a portable air compressor to allow for additional cars to air up and get that traffic out of the park a little quicker. With the lights, instead of 1 light pole, we are proposing 2 light poles. But they are orientated on the south side of this area. And they're going to be shielded both from the back and the sides so that they're facing essentially this travel lane. And that's important because, with people walking through here, airing up, airing down, you want to make sure that it's safe for them to do so and that the cars can see any people that might be in that area. But we wanted to really consider how those lights would impact, onlookers from afar. So that's why they have back and side screening, to really orient that light to the area, only the area that needs to be lit up. And that's really the major changes that we've made here since that last meeting.
Are they motion detector lights?
Yes, they are motion and on a timer. They're also dark sky luminaires, so they're going to have that softer light glow, and it's not going to be like a super white, bright light that's out there. Really just meant to light up the area so that you can see the pedestrians. And so just a little more on that. This lighting is just proposed to light up, again, only what's needed. So if you think about the lighting that we don't like, that would be on the far left where, it's not shielded and the light just shines everywhere and you can see it, all around. But then you've got a shielded light, but it's that really, really bright light that's a little offensive to the eyes. So again, kind of taking it, putting it into that softer glow, addressing some of the intensity, and then putting it on a timer or a motion sensor reduces the amount of light that's used on the site. Because really we only want to use it when we need it, right? So motion detectors and timers will help with that. And then this here, it's probably hard to see it, but this is what the shield looks like. So it's got a side shield, and a back shield. So that light gets directed right where you want it to light up. And so moving on, we've got our proposed gatehouse area up here on the right, and then the existing gatehouse area where we've proposed some changes. So similar to today, when you're coming into the park, I'm going to start at the gatehouse real quick. You've got a dedicated lane to come in by the gatehouse, interact with staff if you need to, and then on the way out, you would go around the gatehouse, to exit the park. So that's a similar format to what we have today. We're essentially throughout this area, we're still proposing traffic tables, so raised crosswalks to slow the cars down as they enter these areas. So for instance, when you're coming into the park, this would be a crosswalk with as a raised crosswalk so that cars slow down as they enter this area. They would kind of take this little curve around this parking area and then go up to the gatehouse where there's another crosswalk, raised crosswalk. All that's just to slow people down through this area before they enter the park and as it gets a little busier with staff and pedestrians. We are proposing some lights, in this area. Oh, and so as on your way out of the park, just again to kind of further alleviate that end of the night rush to get out of the park, but your tires are flat, you need to air up, we're proposing an additional auxiliary air up area in this area. So in the last plans, we had that there, but we had the air compressor located right here. And we actually recently heard some comments about that air compressor making noise and potentially disturbing some of the nearby neighbors. So what we decided was it would make sense to put it on the other side of the maintenance garage. They're able to take the air and pipe it over to those car spaces, but by putting it on the other side of the maintenance garage, that garage is going to help deflect the noise towards the park, not towards the homeowners, which is good, So we've made that change, and then we've also added a couple lights, right? Again, because we want to light up these travel lanes. So we have an existing light with on a utility pole for our existing gatehouse. We're going to leave that light there because it lights up these two lanes. So anyone who's like pedestrians or cars moving through that area, they can see what's going on. But then we're going to add a light in this island, and again, it's going to be that dark sky luminaire on a timer facing the travel lanes, so that if there are any pedestrians moving through this area as people are backing out or driving through, we don't actually want cars to drive through that area. We only want them to use this for the air up area. But again, it helps them see what's going on, especially if it's in the dark. And then at the gatehouse, similar to today, we need certain lights so that the gatehouse staff can see what's going on. Cars approaching, people, who might be trying to, potentially come in and disturb them. So we propose a light across from the gatehouse, similar orientation to today. It would face the entrance lane so that they can see the cars entering. We also have security cameras, so you need a light to be able to read plates and identify cars and people who might be in the area. There's already a light on the gatehouse, so that light remains. I believe it's right over the gatehouse door, so that when you walk in and out of the door, there's a light there and the staff can see anyone who's approaching the building. So those are the lights we're proposing, along with some, light bollards along the raised crosswalk there, just to and that's really low level light. So those lights are going to be on, bollards facing down towards the ground, just to light up the walkways that people might be walking through there. And that looks similar to these lights here in those pictures. So next steps for the project. Taking your comments now, but then ultimately we're moving forward, going to file a notice of intent with the Barnstable Conservation Commission and keep working through those other permits that we need to receive. By May, July of this year, we anticipate having the 100% engineering design plans and getting our order of conditions for the project. Kind of fast forward after that, we'll be looking at construction phases. We don't know exactly, what time of year restrictions we're going to see for the project, but we are anticipating that due to birds and other rare species on the site, and also just public usage throughout our summer seasons, we likely wouldn't be able to start construction until around October sometime, and that would only be able to go through March until birds come back to the area. So we're anticipating that we could start the project as early as this fall, October 2024, and continue through March of 2025 as a phase 1 of the construction project, where we would relocate that upper parking lot, primary dune, and then build up that rear screening dune. And then as a phase 2 of the project, we would address the gatehouse, and we would relocate the gatehouse to the proposed location and redevelop the ORV entrance area. So this will be a two-phased project over 2 different seasons or years. But what affects the ability for us to start this work is getting our permits and also getting the funding for the project. So we have a lot of grants we're applying for. We don't know. Right now we've applied for 1 grant, but we haven't received notice of award. And we have, I think, 3 other grants we plan to apply for as part of this project to seek those funds. And we wouldn't find out till likely this summer whether or not we're getting some or any of those funds. So we're going to apply to all of them, see what happens, and then that will help dictate whether or not we're able to start construction this October, or if we have to wait another year to start construction. And so, this is the last public meeting that we have proposed for the project, largely because we've brought it this far. It's like very close to that 100% level. We don't anticipate a lot of significant issues at this time. So what we're proposing is to keep you all informed through our Sandy Neck storyboard, and also just town public notices. If you guys watch the social media or e-news, that gets sent out through various sources. That would be where you would see the updates for this project. So make sure you've bookmarked our storyboard and you check it often to see what project updates are out there. And of course, if there's anything significant that would impact users' ability to use the site, that would get pushed through all of the town's notification resources. And so with that, I open it up for questions. And she's ready. Let's go.
You have a cutaway drawing showing the change to the primary dune.
Oh, yes. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So real quick, this is an example of the primary dune that was restored at Nauset Beach. And so basically it's going to have a similar look. It's going to be built up higher, and it's going to, be replanted with American beach grass. It's going to have this kind of like flat look to it. But from a, height perspective of where our dune is today versus where it is proposed in this project, The existing dune is the dashed line here, and the proposed dune is the solid line. And so there's a slight difference in the height of those two, but it's about 2 feet of change. So it's really not significantly higher than today. And the reason for its proposed height is to be resilient against the 2070 100-year storm, right? That's what we considered making this project resilient for 50 years. And then, if you go to the lower dune, this bottom profile here kind of starts over at the beach, comes up with the dash line as your existing. This is higher, but that dune's already lower than our upper parking lot. So that portion of the dune's going to be created to basically match that upper lot portion. Just come straight across. And then you have your parking lot, the swale, more parking lot, and then the rear dune is going to be like about 3 feet higher than the parking lot to screen those car headlights as they face in that direction. So these are the cross sections for the existing and proposed dune. Any other questions? Go ahead.
The area where the existing gatehouse is right now, it ponds up in water when it rains hard, or you get an astronomical high tide, that kind of thing. I was just wondering if any thought was given to running a pipe across the road and bringing some cobble or something, raise the road up there. So.
Yeah, so you can't see it on this plan because we tried to keep it less busy, but there are 2 catch basins currently down in this area. And what we're proposing is that the area be regraded so that the water runs towards those catch basins and, doesn't create that ponding issue because, that is also an issue on the site. Go ahead. Absolutely. This project is meant to make the beach accessible for at least the next 50 years and hopefully beyond. During the construction phase, that will impact the ability for people to be up in the parking lot because there's going to be big dozers and loaders and things moving around. It just wouldn't be safe unless you have a hard hat and steel toes. So yes, it will be open again. Go ahead.
Handicap parking spaces. Do you know how many you're going to have?
Yeah, so we've got 1 handicap parking space proposed at the gatehouse, so that there's really only 3 parking spaces there. So we proposed 1 so that anyone who needs to get into the gatehouse can. And then in the parking lot, we have handicap spaces near the bathhouse, right? And we also have handicap parking spaces in the lower lot. We proposed them down here because this is going to be probably the easiest access to the beach, in terms of the height of that access and the length of that access. So we proposed them in that area.
How does the number compare with what are available now?
Good question. I'm not sure how many we have on site, but we are proposing a total of 7 in the parking lot, which, according to our engineers, is the ADA requirement for the number of spaces proposed here, which is about 205 spaces, by the way.
That's considerably more than we have right now for handicap spots.
Yeah, so she's saying it's more handicapped parking spaces than we have today. Yeah. Any other questions, comments? Go ahead.
I want to thank you for all your work and listening to the public and taking those ideas into consideration and morphing the plan and getting it to where it is. It's great. I think it's wonderful.
Well, thank you. That's a great comment to hear.
We have a collection plate at the end as soon as people leave tonight.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea where you're putting that generator for pumping up in the lower lot behind the maintenance building, because I wouldn't be very happy if you was on the other side, because my house was right there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we were thinking about that, and you know, it came up, how do you make an air compressor quiet? Well, that's not really possible. And, you know, if you enclose it too much,
That'll buffer it a lot.
yeah, if you enclose it too much, it won't work, right? It'll overheat. But we also felt like it was still good to have it because it's going to help get cars off the beach and off the site, you know, and not take such a long time for the cars to be able to leave. Because right now there's a lot of traffic that backs up just associated with the air up process on this site. Anything else? Should I wrap it up? Well, I really appreciate you all coming out again tonight. And if you think of anything else, feel free to reach out. I think a lot of you have already reached out and you have my email, amber.unruh@town.barnstable.ma.us, or you can reach out to Nina as well. You know, she takes the comments. It's been great working with you. You know, we're happy to hear your comments and work to incorporate them into these plans. And wish us luck through permitting.
I know.
Is there a period of time that you would like comments to come back by a certain date? Or
You know, I've traditionally provided the date, but I still take comments even after the date if it helps you all to have a deadline. Let's say by March 30th, give me your comments. That way, you know, we all have a deadline to work towards. But yeah, if you think of something in April, just reach out. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good job.